If you say the wrong thing, keep talking, or give even tiny consent, you can turn a basic stop into a full search fast. And once that dog alerts, your options shrink hard. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could save your freedom during a real traffic stop. Tap like 2 because you will want this locked in before you ever need it. Here's the reality. When a cop brings up a dog, you usually do not have time to be clever. You have time to be clean, calm, and exact. Most people have no idea how fast they talk themselves into a longer stop. They joke, they explain, they argue, they try to sound innocent. And that is exactly when the stop starts growing teeth. Let me show you exactly what you need to lock in before the dog ever gets near your car. You're about to learn the one sentence that blocks consent, the one answer that stops you from feeding suspicion, the one question that checks whether the stop is legally over, and the one move that keeps you safe if the officer orders you out anyway. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the pattern is always the same. The drivers who lose are usually talking. The drivers who do better are usually short, clear, and boring. Now think about your side of this. You're sitting there with your heart racing. Your hands feel weird, your mouth gets dry. The officer is calm because this is just another shift for them. But for you, this could be the one stop that changes your life. You might have nothing illegal at all, and you can still make this worse by acting nervous, opening things you were never told to open, or saying yes because you want to seem cooperative. That is the trap. You think being extra nice will end it faster. A lot of times it does the opposite. Here's the truth you need to remember. The officer does not need your help building a case. You do not get points for making their job easier. You get protection by staying polite, short, and firm. If you miss that first minute, you may spend the next 30 trying to undo damage you already caused. The first thing you do is shut down consent before the stop turns into a fishing trip. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Word for word. Memorize that line. That sentence matters because consent changes everything. If you say yes, or even act like yes, you hand over one of your biggest protections. You do not need to be rude. You do not need a speech. You do not need to sound smart. You just need that one clean sentence. Then stop. Let the silence do the work for you. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it is simple, clear, and hard to twist later. This is 100% legal. You're not resisting. You're not fighting. You're not obstructing. You're just refusing permission. Bad way. Most drivers say, I don't have anything, so I guess that's fine. Then the search starts and they just gave it away. Good way. Smart drivers say, Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Then the officer has to rely on some other legal reason instead of your permission. Watch what happens when you keep it short. The officer may try again. They may say, if you've got nothing to hide, why not let me look? That line is bait. Your answer does not change. You say it once, maybe twice, and you do not decorate it. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. That is it. No extra story, no nervous laugh, no but. The longer you talk, the more material you give away. And there's real law behind this. In Schneckloth versus Bustamante, the Supreme Court said a search can be legal if your consent looked voluntary. In plain English, if you sound like you agreed, courts may treat that as a real yes, even if you did not fully understand what you were giving up. That is why your refusal has to be clear. Not vague, not maybe, clear. Now hear the other side of this too. Your refusal does not create a magic shield. If the officer already has legal cause, or the dog later alerts, they may still search, but your refusal still matters because it stops you from becoming the cause. It keeps your record clean. It keeps your rights preserved. Former police officers have confirmed this works because it changes the whole feel of the stop. You stop being an easy yes. You become a driver who knows the line and stays on it. And if you're wondering whether saying this makes you look guilty, kill that fear. Innocent people say yes all the time because they are scared. Guilty people say yes too because they think acting relaxed will save them. So stop trying to look innocent. Just protect yourself. Your job is not to perform. Your job is to refuse consent politely and move nothing you are not told to move. Think you could say that without freezing up? Drop a comment below and tell me if you've ever been asked for a search during a stop, because the next mistake is the one that usually brings the dog. The second thing you do is stop answering fishing questions. You still give your license, registration, and insurance when your state requires it. But after that, you keep your mouth small. You look at the officer and say this, Officer, I prefer not to answer questions. Those exact words. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. A lot of dog calls are built before the dog even arrives. They are built from your words. Where are you coming from? Where are you headed? Why are you so nervous? Whose car is this? You got anything illegal in here? Those sound casual. They're not casual. They're evidence traps. Your answers get compared against your face, your tone, your passenger, your bags, and whatever story the officer already has in their head. Here's the reality. Once the officer thinks you're hiding something, every extra word feels like fuel. Let me show you exactly how drivers hurt themselves. You say you came from work. Your passenger says you came from your cousin's house. You say you were there for an hour. Your phone on the seat lights up with a gas station 10 towns away. Now the officer hears inconsistent story, and suddenly the dog gets called because you talk too much. You were trying to sound normal. Instead, you gave them pieces to play with. Bad way. Most drivers say, I'm just coming from my friend's place. We only hung out for a bit, then we stopped for food, and I'm not nervous. I just hate cops. Then the officer hears a messy story and the stop gets deeper. Good way. Smart drivers say, Officer, I prefer not to answer questions. Then there's no extra story to attack, no timeline to compare, and no free suspicion from your own mouth. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In Hebel, the court said in some situations, a state can require you to identify yourself. In plain English, you may have to give your name or your ID when the law says so, but that does not mean you have to give a full life story. Name and papers are one thing, random roadside interviewing is something else. And another case, called Berkemer v. McCarty, matters here too. In plain English, normal traffic stop questioning often happens before Miranda warnings, which means your roadside words can still be used later. So protect your words before they become evidence. You also need to sound human when you say it. Not angry, not sarcastic, not shaky if you can help it, just calm. Officer, I prefer not to answer questions. And then you stop. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection. When your own talking is the main thing stretching the stop. You're not required to be the witness against yourself on the side of the road. If the officer keeps pressing, you do not switch into debate mode. You do not ask why they are asking. You do not start explaining that you know your rights. You repeat the same line and stay polite. Your voice should sound like you are ordering water. Flat, simple, boring. Boring is your friend. The third thing you do is challenge the timeline the right way. Listen closely, because this is critical. If the officer has your documents, is still writing the ticket, or is doing normal traffic work, you wait. But once the traffic mission is done, or your papers are back, or the warning is handed over, you ask one question. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, is the traffic stop over, or am I free to leave? Word for word. Memorize that line too. This is where a lot of drivers blow it. They ask too early and sound combative, or they never ask at all and just keep standing there while the dog is a few minutes away. Your goal is not to pick a fight. Your goal is to make the legal clock visible. If the stop is truly over, you should be able to leave. If the officer says no, now the reason matters. This comes from Supreme Court rulings. Bad way. Most drivers say, why are you still holding me? This is illegal. I know my rights. Then the stop turns emotional and you give the officer room to say you are escalating. Good way. Smart drivers say, Officer, is the traffic stop over or am I free to leave? Then the officer has to answer the real question instead of dancing around it. Watch what happens when that question lands clean. If the officer says, you're free to go, then you leave. Not fast, not angry, just leave. If the officer says, no, you're being detained, now they own that decision out loud. That matters. It forces the reason into the open. The case you need here is Rodriguez versus United States. In plain English, the Supreme Court said, police cannot stretch a stop longer for a dog sniff. No bonus time, no free delay just because a dog is close. That case is huge, but you also need the other half. In Illinois versus Cabayes, the court said a dog sniff can happen during a normal lawful stop if it does not add extra time. That means you do not win by saying, you can never use a dog. You win by not feeding extra suspicion. So do not say, you can't bring a dog. That is not the move. The move is cleaner. Ask if the stop is over. Ask if you're free to leave. If they let you go, great. If they hold you, they now have to carry that weight. That is why this question belongs in your first minute of preparation and in the first clean opening after the traffic job is done. And do not forget your tone. You are not trying to embarrass the officer. You are building a clean record with your words. Short, calm, respectful. That is how smart drivers sound when pressure hits. Most people already clicked away. If you're still here, you're in the top 10%. Drop a comment saying I'm still here because the next part is what saves you. When the officer orders you out and tries to make you fail with your body instead of your words, now let's cover the move that keeps you safe and keeps your refusal alive at the same time. If the officer orders you out, you get out. If they tell you where to stand, you stand there. If they tell you to keep your hands visible, you do it fast. But while you comply physically, you keep your words clean. You say this, I will comply with lawful orders, but I do not consent to any searches. That line is gold. A lot of drivers think rights mean resistance. No, rights mean words and commands working together. This is 100% legal. You are allowed to say no to consent and yes to safety commands at the same time. That is the sweet spot. Bad way. Most drivers say, I'm not getting out, or you can't touch my car. Then the stop jumps from words to force fast. Good way. Smart drivers say, I will comply with lawful orders, but I do not consent to any searches. Then you stay safer and calmer. The law here matters too. In Pennsylvania versus Mims, the Supreme Court said an officer can order a driver out during a lawful stop. In plain English, you usually do not win that argument on the roadside. Step out if ordered. Keep your hands where they can see them. Do not reach back into the car. Do not open compartments for them. Do not help the search. Just comply and keep your refusal on record. And here's the warning you need burned into your mind. In Florida versus Harris, the court said a dog alert can give probable cause to search. In plain English, once the dog alerts, the officer may claim that gave them a real legal reason to go in. That is why earlier steps matter. If you gave consent, talked into suspicion, and never asked if it was over, you made that road easier for them. If you stayed calm, refused consent, stopped talking, and complied without helping, you gave yourself the strongest possible position. Now let's tie the law together. Rodriguez says police cannot add time just to wait for a dog. Your timeline question matters. Cabals says a dog sniff during a normal traffic stop can be okay if it does not stretch the stop. Schneckloth says if you consent, courts may treat that as a real yes even if you did not understand. Refusal matters from the start. Harris says a trained dog alert can give probable cause. Once the dog alerts, your best chance was the minute before that. That is why these tactics work together. One protects words, one protects consent, one protects the clock, one protects your safety. If you only know one of them, you're walking into a stop with one shoe on. Now picture a real stop with you in it. It is dark. Pull over for speeding. The officer takes your papers, comes back, and starts chatting. Where are you headed tonight? You laugh and answer. Your passenger answers different. The officer asks if there is anything illegal. You say, no, search it if you want. Then you panic and try to take it back. The officer says a dog is on the way. You start arguing. You refuse to step out. Now the whole stop feels ugly. The officer says you're acting suspicious. The dog comes. The dog alerts. Now you're on the side of the road watching your car get torn apart. And half of that damage came from your own mouth. Now run the same stop the smart way. The officer asks where you're going. You give documents, then say, Officer, I prefer not to answer questions. The officer asks to search. You say, Officer, I do not consent to any searches. The officer finishes the warning and keeps talking. You wait for the traffic work to end, then ask, Officer, is the traffic stop over or am I free to leave? If they let you go, you leave. If the officer says no and orders you out, you step out and say, I will comply with lawful orders, but I do not consent to any searches. That is a totally different stop. You did not feed the case. You did not give consent. You did not resist. You did not help delay the scene. Even if things still go bad, your position is cleaner, safer, and stronger from the first minute to the last. Next video, I'm revealing what to say when cops claim they smell weed. Subscribe right now so you don't miss it. Because that line gets drivers searched every single day, and most people answer it the worst possible way. So burn these points into your head right now. First, never hand over consent just to seem nice. Second, stop feeding roadside questions with extra words. Third, once the traffic job is done, ask if you are free to leave. Fourth, if you're ordered out, comply with your body and refuse with your words. That is the power here. You do not need a speech. You need 4 clean moves under pressure. If you can do that in the first minute, you stop helping. The stop becomes something bigger than it had to be. Hit subscribe so you catch that next video on the smell of weed trick. Smash that like button if this just saved you. And drop a comment telling me which line you're going to memorize first. Stay safe out there.